And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. It's 106 and 49 degrees outside of Fargo. A bit cloudy. Will we see any more sunshine today? How about the rest of the week? Well, we got a rundown on the forecast coming up on the program. You want to join in on the program and the conversation, ask some questions, feel free to do so. 701-293-9000 is the Red Wing Shoes studio line, as well as our email inboxes over at weather or ag at flagfamily.com. You can also watch the live stream over there on Facebook and YouTube Live, and we'll give our viewers over there a friendly hello and a Tuesday edition of a goat for you. So there you go. Well, we got fun things coming up on the show today. Bridgette, how are you doing today? I see you're on a remote location again.
I am currently parked in Cleveland, North Dakota. I am en route to Killdeer for this evening. I will be speaking at the Killdeer FFA chapter banquet. And so here I am enjoying the sights and sounds of Cleveland. But it's warm. Like, I'm sitting in the sun, and I'm really thinking I might have to open the window a little bit. It's a really nice day at this moment.
Yeah, I bet it is out there. We're getting a little more cloud cover pulling up here in the Fargo area. We topped out about preliminary 52 degrees, I believe. 51 was the official measurement, but I think we bumped a little bit warmer than that in between hours. And now, for the most part here in Fargo, we'll be looking at temperatures in the 40s with windier conditions. So
it is a smidge on the windy side out there.
Yes.
When I stepped out to grab lunch, it's a hang on to your hat kind of day there, folks.
It definitely is. And speaking of hats, hi, Dean. How are you doing?
Hola.
Nice of you to join us today.
Well, I was taking a nap.
Yeah,
my alarm went off. I'm like, oh, man. Yeah, you kidding me?
Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you what. How's your day going, Dean?
Yeah, splendid.
Splendid? Could one say it's going swimmingly?
No, just splendid.
Just
not
splendid?
Quite, yeah, not quite swimmingly.
Oh, yeah,
And we'll
almost.
just-
You could go to swimmingly if the pools were open locally, but it's a little too soon
The
for
indoor
that.
ones are open.
Could, yeah.
You want to go to the hotel and jump
Indoor.
in the
No,
lazy river?
I've got a pool at the gym.
Yeah, but does that pool allow you to sit in a floaty and have a beverage in your hand while you float down it?
I don't think so.
Wrong pool.
Wrong gym. Wrong gym.
Man, that bar sucks.
And frankly, it is nice enough right now that a lot of the ice is coming off the sloughs and ponds. So, Dean, if you really feel the need to take in some water recreation, you can skinny dip in a slough somewhere.
Oh,
you
no,
go.
I hope the eels don't get me.
There you go.
Or the leeches.
So is this going to keep melting away? Because that'll just throw me off every day. That right now, I'm getting a lot of questions about who's going to the field and where, and I anticipate I'll see more and more tractors moving as I move west.
Right. Yeah, it's spring.
Well, and a good question, Bridgette. So I posted an article online, and I posted it on our Facebook page as well, about the latest LRC run and when our big, or any beneficial rains are going to be. And we've got one bout coming in here shortly after mid-month, and then early May, we've got a better chance of some heavy rain. So if you're a farmer, do you want to plant before that heavy rain hits? I'm guessing yes. And that will come up. I believe it was March 7th or May 7th through the 11th.
Hold on, let me look at my calendar. I got some stuff going on about that time.
It's just
planting that week.
That's usually about the time we're out. Yeah, I mean, that would be bad timing in terms of if it gets too wet to even get out in the field that week.
Well, and we've had that happen before multiple years. When we first started doing this show just a couple of years ago, we had a really late planted spring. There were soybeans that were going in the ground closer to the 4th of July. So it can indeed happen depending on the piece of ground. And how much rainfall do we get? Are we going to have this high intensity in a 24-hour period, or is it going to be a nice and gentle rainfall? And so we have more time for it to soak in, not run off. I mean, there's a lot of factors that will happen yet. Not every area is asking for rain until after they plant. There's some places that felt like they had adequate moisture last fall. So it'll be variable based on where you are and what fields you're in, et cetera.
Gotcha.
It's dry enough. It'll soak it up. Be wet for a few days.
Frost is almost out in a lot of places, so that helps.
I would have figured it would have been completely out by now.
There's maybe a few that aren't in some
spots
sheltered areas,
here
but
and there.
overall, probably about out.
Cool.
Check Endon. See what she says, boys.
Endon says, oh, yeah, soil temperatures.
Soil temperature.
I was thinking of actual temperatures for Endon.
47? What?
47, man. There's a huge difference in temperatures today between the Hector and Endon. I think it was at 11 o'clock or 12 when we looked. I think it was about 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock reading is 5 degrees off.
It was 47 at Hector, Glendon, 46 at Moorheads Airport, but Hector was reporting 51. 4 to 5 degrees.
I'm
warmer.
telling you, and this is not just Hector. Let's get this straight. Email your congressman, whoever you want. This is a nationwide problem from what we understand. Now, you can be a conspiracy theorist if you want, but I'm telling you, if there's multiple sensors that are run by the National Weather Service and they're trying to push an agenda of global warming, what better way than to have these sensors being 3 to 4? You know, the general public is thinking, 3 to 4 degrees, what's the difference? If there's multiple stations that are 3 to 4 degrees warmer, and then this is skewing the average on the year, and multiple 90-degree days, which should have been in the upper 80s, it does make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
You hopping on the conspiracy train, or are you not buying that?
I would need to look at more data to jump on it. I haven't looked at the nationwide stuff, just Hector's. So if you got that, you could forward it to me. I'll take a look at it.
Why don't you do some work and do some research by yourself?
Man, I don't get paid to forecast for Ohio. I get paid to forecast for Fargo.
Okay.
And 14 miles around Fargo. Kidding. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. Busy person over here. I got a lot of stuff going on around our area. Tracking how many clouds are passing over Fargo right now. 142, by the way.
How much does that weigh?
Way more than you think it would.
Yeah.
Billions of pounds.
Oh, Bridgette, help me over here. I got to deal with this for
I'll
another
help you. Here you
50
go.
minutes. There we go. That's
There we
all
go.
we needed
This will
to
save
hear.
the show.
Oh, thank God. We're looking at a lot of cloud cover around right now. Temperatures in the mid to upper 40s across the area. We'll see steady temperatures to slowly falling for the rest of the afternoon under a lot of cloud cover. Could see a sprinkle or two, but most areas really not going to see a lot. And then we'll have breezy conditions out of the northwest, 10 to 25 and gusty. Tonight, we'll see a few breaks in the clouds. We'll call it partly cloudy. Upper 20s to near 30. And then more sunshine for your hump day with temperatures in the low to mid 50s. A little bit warmer on Thursday and Friday, mid to upper 50s. And lighter winds. Nice way to end the week because we do turn windy as we head into the upcoming weekend, but not really any good chances for rain. Maybe a little bit on Sunday, but most of it's going to fall to our south into South Dakota and southern Minnesota, which isn't bad. They need the moisture too. We just need to start pulling some of that a little further north. And we will. We will eventually.
One day soon.
After the middle of the month.
Yes,
Telling you, what do we got? About 2 more weeks?
Couple more weeks,
Yep.
and then we'll start to see some changes.
Yeah.
It'll be nice.
So if in a couple weeks I'm headed anywhere, is this going to be in the form of snow that I have to watch out for? I'm just driving in rain now.
It should be just rain unless you're
Guys.
going out west.
Guys,
Yeah. Should be all right.
Bridgette.
It should be all right.
I'll just have to write that down and keep an eye on it.
Probably going to the western part of the state. They'll get buried in snow.
I could go for another snowstorm. Oh, man. Is anyone else not
Could
done?
you really?
Could anyone else just want one last farewell to winter storm?
No.
Just a foot and a half of snow. Addison's on board. He wants some snow.
I like snow. It's fun.
That's fun. And you know what?
Well, okay, what's fun about it?
Snow in
We
April
have
melts in a week. It doesn't take 4 months.
If you've got a snowmobile, okay. If you got a ski resort nearby, we don't. Okay. Well, Detroit Lakes. I mean, so what's fun about it? If you got a snowmobile,
guys.
I'll get on board with you. It's fun.
Okay, so if we're gonna look for fun things, that's gonna be our guest today. How's that? As I interject
Bridgette's
in this
reeling
one.
us in.
I like that.
All right, take her away, B.
Yeah,
I like it.
look at her try to be the voice of reason here. And so our guest today is going to be a friend of the show who's actually co-hosted for me a couple of times when I've been gone, and that's Sarah Lovas. Sarah is the agronomist for GK Technologies. She does a number of things around the state, especially involved with things with North Dakota State University, et cetera. But we want to talk about some of the mapping that folks are doing. And I don't just mean the Rand McNally as you get ready to head off on a road trip. Sarah does mapping in fields that farmers are going to be using coming up really soon. And so I'm curious to know from her what her spring looks like, how far behind she might be in that mapping situation. What do farmers do with those maps? I know she and Justin have several times talked about the involvement of satellites, and which kind of leads to the fact that I'm currently waiting for an official from NASA to confirm an appointment with us as an interview, because NASA does some things for farmers that they want to make sure you're aware of and that we want to talk about. So as soon as I can get NASA involved, we'll be taking this show to the moon, Alice, right to the moon.
Right on.
Do you know what that's from, Justin, or are you too young?
Probably too young.
Really? It's the Honeymooners.
Nope, never seen it.
Mhm.
Oh.
More of the to the moon crypto.
We
me
get
and, me and Addison get it. You and Bridgette are
we're
stuck in the past.
Now that's when
That's right.
TV. That's when TV was good.
Yeah, a lot of
It's
good
true.
effects back then.
Well, one of the things that Sarah does is she is able to make these prescriptions, because we have folks that do a lot more precision agricultural applications. Well, over in Holland, they're doing something similar, and they're doing this with a robot that actually goes through the tulip fields and is cleaning out disease. So tulips tend to be very prone to viruses, and this little robot will go through the fields slowly. It's not exactly moving real fast. It's moving at less than 1 mile an hour, but it does detect disease, and it does remove diseased plants and or the bulbs. And just like Justin's trivia question was the other day, tulips at one point in time were so valuable that the bulbs were traded as a cash currency versus gold or silver. So it's kind of interesting to see that they're still being protected today. We're now using artificial intelligence to do it and protecting all of those pretty spring flowers for so many who are going to want to see them emerging very, very soon. Well, that's just one thing that's going on today.
Well, we've got to hear from our American Ag Network, and when we come back, we will have Sarah on with us. If you have any questions throughout the show, feel free to give us a call on our Red Wing Shoes shoe line, 701-293-9000. That's 701-293-9000. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
and check out mortonbuildings.com/careers. Morton Buildings is a great place to go looking for a team to join that's excellent and outstanding. We'd love to have you there. At mortonbuildings.com, they also have bad weather pay. They have great quarterly bonuses and so much more. So feel free to check them out, mortonbuildings.com/careers. And speaking of careers and probably people who didn't always expect they'd wind up doing what they do, hello, Sarah Lovas, our guest today. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me today.
How are things in the map cave, as you called it?
Welcome to my map cave. This is where I spend a lot of my time these days. It's okay. I understand from you guys that it is actually getting to be nicer outside. So these are the days when I actually miss being outside a little bit out in the field. But then, I'm also reminded of the days when I used to have to wear Carhartts to go out and count the sugar beet stands and those kinds of things. And then I'm reminded how nice and lovely this map cave really is.
Okay, so tell us what happens in there. You work with GK Technologies mapping as an agronomist. That's a lot of words that people are thinking, what does that mean that Sarah does? What does she do?
So that's a great question. And it's a really busy time of the year. We're not quite at planting season yet. We are right on the edge all over the area. And so we're just kind of waiting for everything to get going. But this is when I am really working a lot of hours because the work that I do has to be done before the planters and the fertilizer spreaders actually get out to the field. So I'm pretty busy with that. And what I'm doing is I'm taking data and I'm trying to write variable rate prescriptions. Well, what's a variable rate prescription, right? I texted Bridgette about this just a little bit ago, but I'm going to see if I can share my screen with you guys. Is that all right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right. Saw this on, do you guys see anything?
No.
We do not. Nope.
I see you.
Okay. I don't think that's going to work then. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, so what the whole idea of variable rate technology is the concept that when, combine or some sort of harvesting equipment goes across the field, a farmer knows that even though you might get an average yield for a field, for example, like 50 bushels of wheat for a whole field, going into that average, you're going to have places in that field that are higher and lower. The areas that are that just produce much better in that field, and the areas in the field that routinely don't produce very much in that field. And so then the concept becomes, in those areas where the field doesn't produce very well, are there things that we can manage to try to improve those areas? If there aren't, why are we spending the same amount of money to produce that lower yield and investing those inputs to the same level as we would in a part of the field that is producing much more? So let's be efficient with our inputs. Where we're not producing quite as much, let's reduce the investment. Where we have areas that are better producing, let's make sure that we're achieving the best yields in those places that are possible, and let's make sure that we've got the level of investment in those areas correct, and make sure we're setting good high yield goals. So I make variable rate maps. And so in the areas that are better producing, we'll put on more fertilizer, and areas that produce less, we'll put on less fertilizer, and a fertilizer spreader will drive across it in one pass. And yeah, the rates will change based on how I write the prescription and how we tell the computer to do that. So that's what I'm doing.
And Sarah, how much of this is aided by satellite? Is this majority of it done by satellite, or is any of it done manually, or like by drone or
LiDARs?
And those are really great questions. So I use satellite imagery. Okay, so there's a couple different ways that we can develop what's called our zone maps, or the data layer that we're going to use to base our variable rate prescriptions. I'm going to try one more time to see if I can share the screen, because if I can, it would just think, nope, okay. All right. So anyway, there's a couple different ways that we can create zone maps. And what we're doing is we're taking data and we're identifying the places in the field that have better production or lower production. And I use satellite imagery to try to identify those areas in the field all the time. So as a matter of fact, we've got Sentinel satellites. They started flying in like 2016. They actually get us a good number of satellite images every year throughout the growing season. And then Landsat satellite family started flying back in the 1980s. So my company, GK Technology, actually has servers with this satellite imagery on it. We process that out, so it's just readily available. It's free data. Anybody can go in and make their own library like this if they want. They don't have to go through our system. But we have that all processed out and ready to go. And our Landsat library actually goes back to like 1984. And then we've got the Sentinel imagery that goes back to like 2016. So when I'm making zones and what I base my variable rate off of, I'm actually trying to put in about 6 years of data into trying to figure out, how the field is variable. When I say how the field is variable, I want to know, this is going to sound a bit like an oxymoron, but how consistent is the variability? I'm looking for consistent variability. The areas that are low in the field, that it's always consistently low in that area, and the areas with greater production that are consistently have greater production in those areas. So I'm trying to describe consistent variability. How about that?
And good luck. That's not exactly something everybody would think of on a daily basis. Nice. So, most folks are doing this type of thing in the fall, right? Do you feel like this time of year it's a little less pressure to get those prescriptions done, or are folks running behind and they're pretty frantic to get ready to go to the field right now?
So it's interesting because this is actually a very high pressure time. So in the fall of the year, we make zones, and that I would say is definitely the biggest time of the year for soil sampling. So we'll go into the fields and we'll soil sample. And soil sampling, just so you know, it's when we take samples of soil and we send them into a lab and we have them analyzed for like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and that's how we base our fertilizer recommendations off of that information. So once we've got these zones set up that describe the consistent variability of the field, once we have that done, they'll take that map into the field and they'll soil sample it in the fall of the year. So in the fall, I make a lot of zones. This time of the year, I'm probably not making so many zones, but I'm writing a lot of prescriptions. In the fall, there'll be some fertilizer that goes down, but now in the spring of the year, farmers are finalizing their planting decisions so they know what's going to get planted in the field. And they've got, just some more concrete ideas of what they really want. And so I write all those things. So I'm writing a lot of seed prescriptions right now. We'll variable rate the seed. A lot of dry fertilizer is going out. I do have some liquid fertilizer that I need to be writing. And, even like seed and iron fertilizer to help manage iron chlorosis in soybeans. I don't know. Did you guys deal with iron chlorosis last year when you were raising your soybeans in your field? I can't remember.
We were lucky that we were in a field that did not have an iron chlorosis deficiency. It was actually a bit of a surprise, but that doesn't mean that those types of things won't pop up this year. And especially as we move to a corn crop, maybe there's going to be some watchouts that Sarah can share with us. So here we are at the bottom of the hour. We will be back with Sarah Lovas. We'll keep talking about soil sampling and mapping and some of the things that she does and how we get ready to roll for the field this year in 2024. Be back soon. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thank you for joining us. And our discussion today with Sarah Lovas. She's with GK Technologies. We're talking all about soil maps and fertilizer applications. And okay, Sarah, you made mention of our soybeans last year. What about corn this year? What are some watchouts we should maybe be planning for in your experience as we go into our cornfield this year?
Are you talking about like nutrient management or variable rate or?
Probably both. If we were to look at a soil map, let's say, as new landowners, so to speak, or new farmers on that ground, if we read through that soil map, what kind of information could it give us and help us make better planting decisions?
Well, I think one of the biggest nutrient deficiency issues that we've been faced with in the last few years is actually potassium, at least in this neck of the woods, which sounds kind of odd, but I think it gets to be kind of an overlooked nutrient. And, within that, I think it's really important for us to make sure that we're thinking about it in a very realistic standpoint. So, by and far away, like the Fargo clays that we're on right here, this heavy, thick vertisol type clay that we're on right around like where your radio station is, and right on I-29, kind of in that corridor, that soil is actually pretty naturally high in potassium. And so I think it kind of got to be one of those nutrients that we just didn't use a whole lot years ago. And then all of a sudden, as we started raising more corn and soybeans, those are very big users of potassium. And so I think we just kind of started using a lot more of it than what we originally thought we would. And so especially as you go west and you start finding some soil type changes, it's very easy to find some places that get to be pretty low actually in potassium. And there actually are some areas where you're going to find some fields with lower organic matter levels in them and pretty sandy textures, and those types of soils actually have a lot of trouble holding on to potassium. So it's really hard to actually fertilize that potassium level and really try to build that potassium level up, and yet the crop needs it. So it's one of those things that, especially to reach some of those bigger corn yields that a lot of our farmers in the area are trying to reach, that we make sure we're having some potassium out there to help with the yield in the year that we're raising that corn crop. And actually, potassium has been a nutrient that I've had a lot of success variable rating. And I think it gets to be a little bit overlooked from a variable rate standpoint, because especially in this little neck of the woods, it kind of feels like nitrogen was our first go-to to really do variable rate management. And of course, nitrogen is very visual. You see the response is so immediate. And I think it's easier in some respects sometimes to see where nitrogen is different across a field. But in some of these fields, we really didn't realize that there were spots with these potassium deficiencies until we started doing some zone soil sampling, where we could really figure out that there was areas in the field with lower levels of potassium. And that was why yields were getting held back. So I think it's something that's really important for farmers to think about. It's really hard to fix once you get into season, because it's not a very mobile nutrient in the soil. It doesn't move very, very far in the soil. So it's kind of one of those things that we got to take care of here before we get into planting season. And honestly, with the spring we're having and as dry as it is, this is one of the few springs where there might be a chance to get out and do a little bit more soil sampling. And so if you have that chance and you have some questions about a couple of fields like that, go and check it out and see if you have some potassium issues out there.
I got one for you, Sarah. So when you're deciding to write your variability scripts for adding fertilizers or other deficiencies in a field, is there a time in the year where that just becomes too late, where say it needs to be done in the spring because by the time your crop starts emerging and you realize maybe you do have a potassium deficiency in the field, does there come a point where it's too late to add more potassium into the soil, if it's even possible to, once the crop emerges or starts growing, to where that's just not going to make a difference if you add it or wait another spring?
Well, Justin, that's a really good question. And, it really depends on what nutrient you're trying to manage out there. So there's what's called soil mobile and soil non-mobile nutrients. Soil mobile nutrients move with water. So that would be things like nitrogen and sulfur, for example. They'll move with the water. And so if you, for example, were to put that down in the middle of the season, in the middle of the row, it's going to move out towards the roots once you get a rainfall in, and it'll kind of get to where it needs to be. Mm-hmm. But then there's soil non-mobile nutrients. For example, phosphorus really adheres to the clays in the soil, and it doesn't move very far. And potassium likewise binds onto the cation exchange capacity and doesn't really move very far. And so when you have that, the moisture just isn't gonna move it to where it is. So if you get those nutrient deficiencies early in the season, it is really tough to try to fix them. There's some things that we can try to do, but it gets pretty tough, and in some situations pretty questionable whether that's actually going to work. But as far as it goes for things like variable rate nitrogen, I've written variable rate side dressing maps, liquid side dressing maps many times for the middle of the growing season. And sometimes we don't even have that as a full-fledged plan at the beginning of the planting season, but maybe we got a lot of rain, or there's some sort of issue that came up, and we felt like we either lost nitrogen, or our original nitrogen plan just didn't have enough there to maintain the yields that we think we're going to get, and so we need to add more. And so when that happens, we can go out and put down more nitrogen in the form of a side dress. And yeah, certainly I've done a lot of variable rating with that.
And Sarah, you've got a podcast through your company, GK Technologies. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, thank you for that. We do. We have we just started it in January. I'm going to back up here for a second. We hired a new agronomist who partnering up with big time. Her name is Jody Bowe. And Jody and I have known each other for a while. And so at the behest of one of our owners, Darren Johnson, we started a podcast. It's called A Geek Speak. And in case you didn't know, GK Technology, it was supposed to be Geek Tech for Egg. That was, we kind of consider ourselves geeks. Very proud of that, I guess. And so our podcast is called A Geek Speak. And so Jody and I talk about all things precision agriculture. And actually, I don't know if it was recently, but I don't know if it's aired yet, but one of the episodes that we did, we actually interviewed a farmer who had a chance to work with a protein sensor on his combine. So it's on the go protein sensing. So he can see how the protein in his barley varies across the field, and then take it in accordance with his yield, and then come up with nitrogen use scripts. So he can really be more precise with his nitrogen program in a variable rate sense, taking into account the variable protein data and variable yield data. So we wrote a script because we have the ability to write computer code to put together data layers any way that people want them to be done. I don't do it. I'm not a Visual Basic expert, but our owner, Darren Johnson, is. But yeah, so that's one of the recent podcasts, and we talk about that with him. And he actually took it by barley variety, so that when he's trying to deal with the malt contracts, he knows exactly where he wants that nitrogen rate to be, so he can get that malt barley protein right where it needs to be. Wow. So go beer. What can I say?
Right.
Yeah, no kidding. That's pretty interesting.
That's wild.
With a lot of farms around the area, how many, I guess, how do I want to say this? I don't know if it's as a percentage or just as a whole. Some of that technology just isn't available for some people in agriculture, especially some of the smaller operations. I know my friend on his family farm, they have old equipment that doesn't have all this fancy stuff on there, and they just kind of go through with their 6-row plow and their 4 or 5 head header for corn. But how many people are jumping on board with the precision agriculture? How many more people do you see coming into this, writing scripts or getting scripts for precise spraying on their farms? Is this something that's getting a lot higher in percentage with the smaller agriculture? I would imagine this is probably something that's pretty important when it comes to larger scale operations, just because your margins are going to be so much larger.
So that's a good question. And I think one of the things I first want to kind of mention is the idea of field size. And that from a standpoint that, for example, like field size in the state of Illinois is quite a bit different than we're thinking about field sizes, for example, in Montana or Saskatchewan. You know, I've worked with people up in Saskatchewan who have 2,000 acre fields. One field, 2,000 acres. That's a big field. And so, you know, the idea of not managing that from a variable rate standpoint seems to be kind of, you know, almost counterintuitive, because there's so much that can happen in 2,000 acres. I mean, that could be the size of a whole farm here in our neck of the woods. And so, but in Illinois and a lot of those Iowa, those Corn Belt states, they have much smaller field sizes. Some places, you know, 50 acres is a really big field size. Well, depending upon how variable it is, it still might make sense to manage that field from a variable rate standpoint. But certainly as you get to have larger fields, it makes sense. The other thing to keep in mind is, you know, certainly the adoption rates are greater for larger farmers or farmers that are getting bigger equipment, because the idea is that you're going to drive across the field in one swath and you're going to be as efficient with it as you possibly can. That makes sense. But I also want to make a really big note that you don't have to have the newest equipment out there to do variable rate. You do have to work with somebody who knows how to get prescriptions into the equipment that you're working with. I write to all different kinds of controllers in the market: red, green, other color green, yellow. Doesn't matter. We'll figure out how to get it in there. And my boss, the original programmer, he actually started writing prescriptions for fertilizer spreaders before there was GPS on the tractor cab. He had it figured out for how fast the fertilizer spreader would drive, and how fast it would go across the field. Okay, I think, are we taking a break?
Nope, you've got 2 minutes, Sarah.
Okay, sorry, thanks. Bridgette's cutting me off. Anyway, so when my boss, he had it figured out so that he could drive across the field, know how fast you're going, how wide the boom was on the fertilizer spreader, and change the rate. And all of his skills that he had writing prescriptions, we still have in our software. So we can write to some really old equipment out there. As a matter of fact, it wasn't so long ago, one of our software users actually wrote a prescription for a client that needed a floppy disk. And she was able to find a floppy disk, get it exported out, and get it into the controller. So you don't have to have the newest equipment out there. We might have to think about how to get it done, but we will get it in there.
Cool. Floppy disks.
That's old.
That's back there.
Man.
That's Windows. That's pre-95 or Windows 98.
You got to realize that the copyright on our software, when he started programming this stuff, it goes back to like 1996. I mean,
yes.
People don't know that, but Darren Johnson from Halstead, Minnesota, he's actually one of the fathers of precision agriculture. So,
and there's a reason why the adaptation rate here in this area is so very high. And Sarah, if people who are listening want to visit more with you about what you can do for them through GK technology and other items, what would you like to share as information as to how people can find you?
Well, people can find anybody at GK Technology, including myself, by going to www.gktechinc.com. And on our website, we have a contacts page, and you can find everybody that works there. So you can find me, you can find my bosses, You could find Jody, give us ideas for our podcast, whatever.
That sounds awesome. Okay, folks, it, as always, Sarah's the whole reason why we always say soil, not dirt. And we appreciate that she keeps us on the straight and narrow. Okay, we will be right back. Please don't go anywhere. Check the weather, last few headlines. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for rejoining the program. 153. It's cloudy, windy, starting to get a little chilly Tuesday afternoon. We'll get a rundown on the forecast for you coming up here in just a few moments, as well as another ag topic that we need to get to. But before we do that, it's time to play a fun little game. Who wants to be a certificate for a $10 gift card to Cheyenne Gardens winner? We're going to do Cheyenne Gardens trivia right now. Here's how we do it. Be the first person to call in with the correct answer. You win yourself that $10 certificate to Cheyenne Gardens, just 10 minutes north of Fargo. Hey, I'll tell you what, they got such a cool little selection over there. You should go check them out, even if you don't win one of these certificates. But we'll be doing this for another week and a half, or I think we have 2 more weeks of doing this. Anyway, here's your trivia question for today. What is the longest living organism on Earth? What is the longest living organisms on Earth? 701-293-9000 is the Red Wing Shoes shoe line. Should probably pull that up so I can take callers. I don't even have the phone lines open. I mean, you can call in, but I can't see who's calling. I better see who's calling.
What is the oldest organism on Earth?
Oldest living organisms on Earth.
You sure that's the correct answer? I can think of things older.
Can you? Ex-wife? No?
How about that?
So let me ask this. When you say organism, are we thinking somewhere in the insect lifeline, or is that, are we talking somewhere in the insect world? Am I given anything for hints here?
No, it's not insect world.
It's not an insect world, I'll tell you that. Hi there, caller.
Okay.
What's your name?
Casey L.
Casey. What do you think the longest living organisms on Earth are?
Bacteria.
Bacteria is not right. And Dean was kind of on the same line.
I was on the same
And how
thinking.
dare you call it dirt, Dean?
Yeah,
We just had Sarah in here.
I was thinking soil, dirt, No, that's
No,
not.
it's not
Well,
microorganisms.
that's where bacteria lives.
What's that?
I said that's where bacteria lives, the dirt.
This is true.
See?
It lives in the dirt.
I'm telling you.
Your dirty carpet, Dean.
I bet you Google search that and you're going to come up with a different answer than
Well,
that.
maybe we'll have to do that.
How about the oldest living, instead of saying organism, I would use another word.
I'm not sure. Well, hey, Casey, if I'll do a little Google search here. I'll let you know here in just a moment. And I don't think that's not the correct answer, though. But thanks for calling. Be listening. 701-293-9000 is the Red Wing Shoes phone line. Again, that trivia question for today is, what are the longest living organisms on Earth? What are you looking at? What do you see there?
You're right. It's 5,000 years old. But see, I'm gonna argue with that because bacteria has been along. It's been
How
here
long
longer
does
than
one bacteria live for, though? They've been around forever.
Right.
But how long does it
Does it
live
live?
for?
Okay, so
Hi there, caller. What's your name?
John.
John, what do you think the answer is?
I think it is trees. I'm thinking like, do I have to say a specific variety?
Nope.
Yeah, actually you do. No, I'm just No, trees is the correct answer.
Oh, sweet. God,
Yeah.
I had heard that somewhere, like aspen trees or
There's a
trees are the oldest living organism.
Yep, there's a pine tree out in California. It stands at the ripe old. It can't still be around. It's 5,000 years old, making it the oldest known non-cloned living organism on Earth. Huh.
Yeah, the Great Basin bristlecone pine, estimated at 5,000 years old and thriving.
Son of a gun.
Look at that tree is thick. Wow.
Bet you it makes really nice marshmallow s'mores.
You know, I bet you it does. Hey, John, thanks for calling. I'll put you on hold here. Our producer will get a little information from you, and then you can claim that that certificate to Cheyenne Gardens anytime between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday. It'll be valid on the 15th of April until, I think, July.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for playing. Right on. That's an old tree. 5,000 years old.
Oof.
I wonder how wide that tree is. That thing looks massive.
Who had to count the rings to determine
right.
its
I
age?
know.
Oh, no, it's no ring counted on that one.
Man.
It's still standing.
Eh.
Thing
Okay.
looks like it's 15 feet wide, though. Holy moly.
Congratulations, John, man.
Yes. Well, I think we're about out of time, actually. I don't know. You
Pretty
got like
close.
30-second rundown on the weather?
We'll whip out the weather here real quick. We're looking at cloudy skies. We'll turn partly cloudy as we head into the overnight hours. Steady temperatures for the rest of the afternoon to slowly falling. And then as we head into tonight, upper 20s. And as we head into your Wednesday, more sunshine. Northwest winds 10 to 20. And highs, the low to mid 50s. and light winds on Thursday and Friday, and plenty of sunshine and highs mid to upper 50s. We're going in the right direction. Improving weather as we head throughout the rest of the week.
Downhill.
We're going in the right direction.
Right on. Jay Thomas Show's next.